As soon as it loads, it should be ready.
Yep.
Yep. Alright, so what I did is I just came up with like a basic design for a page. I know there's going to be a logo at the top here, and it's probably not going to be formatted like this. But I just have like 3 pages so far. Like in the settings page, just so people can alter that. And then in the new hand, if you click on that, it has a list of all of all tiles that you can have, and then what will happen later is that you'd be able to click on it and it would add it to an array, and then after the 13 to 14, we'll go on to the next page.
Okay. So are any of those guys clickable at this point?
No, I wasn't sure how to make it clickable. Would you just, instead of adding a label, add a link?
No. So yeah, there's actually a way to respond to clicks on a cell. So does it make sense to look at that next? Probably.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any other questions about the stuff you ran into, or do you want to look at how to make links clickable?
Yeah, that should be the main thing.
Okay.
But just to make it look better, I just wanted to know if there was a way that I could make the buttons round. Just because it was kind of annoying me that it was square buttons.
You're talking about on the collection view?
No, not the collection view. That part was fine. But just like at the home page.
Yeah, there is. I'll actually show you a way to pull that off.
Alright.
So let me open up my side of things. And let me share the screen with you. All right, you can see this?
Yeah.
All right. So let's see where we left off here on this version. And I'm actually going to introduce you to something called an extension, which I think will allow you to do some other things you might be interested in. All right, so both of these guys take us here right now. Okay. So I'm going to actually open up a different project that I have and steal it from that. I'll just steal this one. And all right, so one thing you can do in I guess you have kind of 2 different ways to pull things off. Let me open up our Keynote so I can update that as well with this. So you're already familiar with inheritance. Let's see. So I'm going to say something like this: adding functionality to a class, something like that. So one way we can do this is through inheritance using a subclass. So we can subclass a class using inheritance. We can also create an extension of an existing class which adds functionality to the existing class without us having to subclass it. So, for example, what you're saying here is you would like to have buttons that have rounded corners, right? Something along those lines. So, one thing you might want to do is you might want to say, you know what, I want any sort of UI view, for example. So a button is a UI button, and a UI button is a UI view. So it's a subclass of UI view already. So you can say that I want anything that is a UI view to have a couple of abilities, like maybe make themselves round, that kind of stuff. All right, so that's where maybe an extension comes in. So rather than having to go in and subclass UI button and then say, well, instead of using normal UI buttons here, I'm going to use my special Zach button that has the rounded corners. Instead of doing that, what we can do is we can add an extension at the top level. So, and all that is a normal object. So I'm going to go into Xcode here. I'm going to create a new file. It's going to be a Cocoa Touch class. And this guy's just going to be a plain Jane NS object. So he's nothing special. He has nothing to do with things that appear on the screen. He's just an NS object. Okay, and naming conventions usually go something along the lines of this. I usually say something like UI view plus extras, something like that. So usually when you do an extension, you have a plus sign in there somewhere just to kind of let you know this is extending the UI view class. So I'll click next there. And we'll go ahead and create that. All right, so that's what this guy currently looks like. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paste in the code I took from my my other thing. So notice that instead of it being a class, it's something called an extension. And the class I'm extending is the UI view class. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of a lot of this stuff since a lot of this stuff doesn't necessarily adhere to us, but these first couple of things might. Okay, so and then I also have some helpers for get height, get width, set position, set height, set width, set rect, because whenever you want to change something on the screen, you have to deal with its frame. Have you dealt with frames of a view yet?
Can you say that again? It's a little bit.
Have you dealt with frames of a view?
I don't think so.
Okay, at some point we'll look at that, but these are helper functions for that.
All right.
Okay. Do this. So one of the things I already have in here is something called mask as circle. And what this should do is it should actually do it as a circle. So let's test it real quick, and then we'll come back in and manipulate it. So let's go to my storyboard. And let's see this guy's view controller. Do I already have outlets for those two buttons? I do not. So let me give myself outlets there. So I'm going to steal this line. All right, so I created outlets for those two buttons. Go in here and we'll hook them up. And let's go ahead and give these guys a background color so we can actually see them. them light gray, like that. And let's make them a little bigger too. So I'll just run this real quick and just make sure those guys are showing up on the screen. Okay, they are. So now we might want these guys to be circles instead of squares. But so let's do that to one of them. So inside of ViewDidLoad here, I'm going to say self.button1 mask as circle. So this is something that came from this extension I wrote. So anything that is a UI view, which a UI button is, knows how to mask itself as a circle now.
Are you talking?
Not right now. Okay, well, I promise you that guy's a circle, but we need to set his color to not clear color. Here, this is probably the easiest way to do it, just so we can see it. All right, that should give us the light gray for the background color. Oh. It's got to be a CG color. So there's something like that that gives you, some changes there. Now what you can do is you can mess with the corner radius to change how you're dividing by the height and stuff like that to give you different curves. So if I take this and I divide it by 3, for example, because this is attempting to make it a circle, but since the width and height are not equal to each other, it's not a perfect circle right now. But you can manipulate those things to give you different shapes and stuff around it. Stuff like that. Similarly, we also have the ability now to add a border or an underline to these buttons, because those are other features that I have in this extension. So we can do something like self.button2.mask with border, and let's give the border a width of 10 and a color of UI color dot. We'll do blue color. So now that second button should have a thick blue border around it. stuff like that.
Stuff like that.
All right, so
All right, so
this just gives you kind of a starting point for this extension thing, but anything that you want to be able to apply to a whole bunch of stuff in your project, a nice easy way is to throw it into an extension for one of the base classes. All right, so I guess while we're at it right now, just so I could show you the frame stuff, let's say that programmatically we want to move those buttons. So I'll go back here and let's just say I want to set self.button2 dot frame is equal to cg rect make. Does that make rect? Maybe it's just like this. Yeah, it is like this now. So what I can do is I can give it its upper left-hand corner in terms of X and Y. So I'll put it up near the top of the screen now. So we'll do 1010. So this will be up near the upper left-hand corner. And then maybe I want the width to be the same as the current width. So I'll say self.button2 dot frame dot size dot width, and height will be self dot button2 dot frame dot size dot height. So what I'm doing here is I'm programmatically moving that button to a different place on the screen by adjusting his frame. So every view lives within a square, and that square has a location on the screen. And when we did it with our storyboard and we drug it around in here, you know, as I'm moving this, the frame is changing. You know, that frame is updating. Well, what's going to happen now is when this launches, its frame is way down here, which is going to be, you know, X is 70 maybe, and Y is 400. Well, I'm going to programmatically reposition it like somewhere up in here. So I'll go ahead and run that. So now it's up there. All right, so this is kind of a headache to do it this way. You see, I had to write all this crap over here to get it moved up there. So one of the things I did in my extension is I said self.button2 dot, what did I call it? Let me look at my extras here. Set position. Just like that. So this line is now going to do the same thing as this crazy one up here did. But if you look at the extras inside of set position, I'm doing the same stuff as I did before. You know, I gave myself an abstraction for it to make life a little easier. Still up there, just accomplish it a little bit different way. All right, that kind of makes sense on how frames work. All right, so and everything that you see on the screen has a frame that governs it. But now with this extension thing, everything that you see on the screen has these convenience methods for getting the height, getting the width, setting the position, all that stuff. So that's kind of the advantage of these extension things. Okay, so now what we want to have happen is these are my grid things, and I have a whole bunch of them. So you have them as you have them as like a grid with your 2 or 3 in a row. So I can even make mine look more like yours if you want. Squeeze that label down some here. We'll give this guy a background color. So there's some grids, because I'm running it on the smaller size app, it couldn't quite fit them, so if I squeeze it down a little bit more, now they'll all fit. All right, so now one thing we might want to do though is I think right now is yours 3 across or 4 across?
There's 36.
Okay, right, but I think in the example you showed me, did you have 3 or 4 across for a row?
Yeah,
4 across. So now if you were to go ahead and, in fact, go ahead and do this on your side of things, rather than run it here on the 7 Plus, run it on the SE.
All right.
And let's see what that does. Go ahead and share your screen. I'll take a look at it.
I think I was actually running it on the 6, but I'm not sure.
Oh, whatever. 6 or 6 Plus. That's fine. If you run it off the SE, it'll change.
So how should I make it so that it's the same on all of them?
Yeah, I'm about to show you. Yeah, I think I mentioned it last time that we have to create a custom flow layout.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and. So while that's loading, I'll go ahead and grab. that.
Yeah, this is only 3 on each.
Yep, and if you went to 6 Plus or a 7 Plus, you'd be probably 5 across or something like that. So you really want to have a consistency to it. So let me share my screen now. So I'm going to create a new file in here. Cocoa Touch class. And we'll call this guy Custom Flow Layout. All right, and so now let me show you how to use this guy. So this is the class that I'm going to use on that collection view screen that allows me to define how I want that collection view to always lay itself out. and then I'll explain kind of what's happening in the code here. Let me just grab my example. All right, so here's my collection view. And inside of view did load, I'm going to create an instance of my custom flow layout that I just wrote. And we'll look at it here in a second. And one of the things that custom flow layout lets me do, well, the particular one that I wrote here, which at a glance you can see it's not like overly long or anything. Okay, but I keep track of 3 different attributes. The number of columns I want there to be, so that means the number of elements in each row. The relative width and the relative height. Because the idea here is if I say I want there to be 3 columns, so 3 elements in each row, I want that to stay consistent no matter which size device I'm on. So that's where relative width and height are going to change. Okay? So what ends up happening in here is we have a function called item size that collection view knows how to call. And what it's doing is it's going to get a structure back for a width and height of each cell. And that width and height is going to be based on the number of columns that I've set, and then the item width of that guy relative to the current width of my collection view. So it kind of does the math in real time based on the actual size of your screen and gives you the different width cells to fill out your columns. So that's all this guy is doing is changing the size of your cells to fill in the columns to a certain width. So now if I come back in here, I create an instance of my custom flow layout, and this is inside of my collection view controller. Then I let that layout know how many columns I want. Then I go ahead and let my collection view know that I want him to be governed by this new layout. And I don't think I actually have to make the background white here, but I historically have just to make sure that if this is laid over something else, that it's I don't see a picture of something else behind the scenes. But you can optionally leave this part out. So let's go run this now. So we see that we have 3 across now, kind of perfectly sized. And if I go and I run this on a 7 plus, so let's go the other extreme. So we went from the smallest device to the largest device. It's going to take a second for it to launch here. And there's our 3 columns across, with obviously each cell being larger. And something you can do if you want there to be a little bit more of a gap in between these, you can come into your custom layout and you can manipulate the relative height. think you would do things like 1.25 in here. I need to see. That might take it the wrong direction. That might make them actually overlap. I might be able to do it with a setup layout too. Yeah, that made it actually too large. So let's change that to 5 for the spacing between them, and then we'll change that to 5 for the spacing between lines. Let's see if that does the solve the problem. Yeah, it gets you the 5 spaces between, but then it starts running into issues for the space between cells. So similar to what you had to do with the curvature of the buttons, you'll have to manipulate things in here until it looks just right. This base one just makes them right next to each other. So you think you'd have to do the math inside of item size, although I think right next to each other makes the most sense anyways. But that's how you can guarantee it looks the same across multiple devices. All right, so now what you want to be able to do in yours is if I click on one of these guys, you want it to take us to another screen or something like that, and proof that we clicked on it, that each one of these guys knows how to act like a button. All right, so I'm going to go in here and let's start it off simple. So I'll go into my collection view. And I'll scroll down here. And I'm going to add a delegate method here. Let's see. They have a couple that are commented out here, but I don't think they actually give you the one that I like. So I'm going to say did select item and index path, so it gives me the completion for that. All right, and what happens is that this function, and I need to put override in front of this. This is one of the functions that's built into UI collection view delegate. So remember last time we talked about that we have two things. We have data sources and we have delegates. The data source is what's in the collection view. The delegate is what happens when you click on stuff or you scroll or stuff like that. How do you respond to events? So we just added one of the delegate methods here that allows us to respond to clicks at a specific index path. So for right now, let me just do some printing. So I'll say print. So you clicked on button index path dot row. So every single time we click on something, it's going to print something down here. Actually, I think it might be on this side of things. So we'll see that this guy's getting called. So I clicked on button 7, clicked on button 6, I clicked on button 0, clicked on button 1. So now it's responding to these. Now, it's responding to the actual cell. So I'm clicking on the cell, not an individual thing within the cell. Okay, and let me show you the difference there. So because we have a custom cell in here.
We have a custom cell in here.
And we can put in an IB action.
And we can put in an IB action.
Button clicked.
Button clicked.
And we can say you clicked me
You clicked
as a
me.
print. All right. Now what we'll do is we'll go and actually put a button onto our cells and set the event to button click for that button.
That button.
Just put him right there.
Put it right there.
Make sure I've selected the cell over
Sure,
here.
I've selected the cell over here.
Then we'll go to the outlets.
Then we'll
And
go to the
here's
outlets.
button clicked.
Button clicked.
We'll do touch up inside.
We'll do touch up inside.
So now when I hit the
So now when I
specific
hit the
button,
specific button,
it will be that particular instance of my custom cell responding to it. If I hit anywhere outside of that button, but still inside the cell,
Inside the cell,
it will be my collection view itself,
well,
its delegate handler,
delegate handle.
handling the fact that I clicked the entire cell.
Cell.
All right, so again, if I click down here, I clicked on button 0, I clicked on button 1, clicked on button 2, but if I click up here, it says you clicked me.
You clicked me.
So now this is the
So now this
individual
is the
cell responding to just that button
Just
click,
that button click.
as opposed to me clicking the cell itself.
Cell itself.
So you can do one or the other, or even both, if you want to have one thing happen if you kind of click the whole cell, but if you want to have something specific happen in here, or maybe you modify this label or something like that.
This label or something.
So if we come back into the
So if we
cell,
come back in,
we have access to the label.
we have access to the label.
Maybe we say
We say
self.the label text
text
clicked, something like that.
clicked, something like that.
So now whenever we click on something, we can change the text on that label to clicked.
Clicked.
But this should actually let me show you something interesting that we talked about last time as well. So I'll go ahead and click here.
Click.
So that guy says
So that guy says,
clicked. Now I'm going to scroll up,
I'm going to scroll up.
and then I'll scroll back
And I'll
down.
scroll back.
So now I'm back to the top.
Back to the top.
And notice, I don't remember which one of these it was, but it's no longer clicked, right? It's now back to its original value. So the reason for this, well, actually, do you know what the reason for this is?
The reason for, say it again?
Do you know why,
Do you know why
if I come in here and I click on this button and it changes this to click,
changes this to click?
and then I scroll
And
down,
then I scroll down.
and then I scroll back up,
And I scroll back up.
it's as if that never
It's
happened?
as if that never happened.
Oh, it's because when you have lots of the boxes, it doesn't want to have to load them all. What it does is if you scroll down too much, it just brings the box down. So that box that you like on, you scroll down, it was replaced by a box.
Yep. So it has to do with this stuff back in here
Here.
about dequeuing a reusable cell. So each of those cells, we can't rely on the cell itself maintaining its state,
Maintaining its state.
because we're using the same 12 cells over and over and over again.
Over and over again.
And when we call out,
And
when this function gets called, the cell for item and index path,
item and index path,
it resets values in there.
sets values in there.
So if we need to remember stuff for a specific index path, we need to have it set. We need to keep track of that somewhere.
Track of that somewhere.
So as an example, let's say we did want to do that, just out of curiosity. Let's say that I wanted this cell to remember that I had previously clicked on him, such that when I scroll down, and then I scroll back up, actually I didn't scroll down far enough to get past the DQ'd. So now I'll scroll back up. There we go. That I wanted it to come back and say clicked. How would you maybe go about doing that if you needed to come up with a trick to make it work?
Would you just not DQ it? Or would that just, like, make computing power take that much longer?
Yeah, that's not an option because that's there for performance reasons, because you certainly wouldn't want to have this be super sluggish when you were scrolling. Yeah, so the DQing thing that's given. That's going to happen every time. So I need some way for a cell to be able to restore his state given what his location is. Any suggestions?
You go back to the code where you set the one where you set the text to customs or whatever it is. Like when you click on the
For the cell?
yeah, like yeah. Could you set all of the cells to the My Custom Cell class?
Well, they are. So if you come into this right here, whenever we DQ something, it's DQ'd as a My Custom Cell. But the problem is we only have, let's say, 12 My Custom Cells, laying around. But we're pretending we're using those 12 to represent 500 different ones. So this is actually kind of an interesting problem that you might often run into in your programming, especially if you have custom cells that need to remember things. So what we might do is maybe up here inside of our collection view, for example, we might go ahead and create a mapping for the current string for a cell. So we might create a dictionary. So I'm going to say var vals is equal to, let's do, something like that. So this guy's empty initially. And then what we can do we have this index path.row. So the very first thing we can do is we can try to get the string. So we can say if self.vals at bucket index path.row is not equal to nil. Then we'll say cell.the_label.text is equal to self.vals at indexPath.row. Else, if it is currently nil, then we need to go ahead and set self.vals. Actually, let me do it with this if statement down here. We'll go ahead and set the initial values for that particular cell. But instead of setting the cell directly, we'll set this guy equal to blah, or this guy equal to root. And then we'll go ahead and set the cell's text equal to the correct value.
Correct value.
Now, that's all fine and good, but now we need to have a way for an individual cell to be able to manipulate this variable, because he needs to have access to it so that he can change his particular index path. So what we need to do is we need to make cells aware of my index path. So we can start off at -1 as a default. And then var, we'll call it vals. And this guy is going to be a int string dictionary. So what we'll do here is after we set a particular label to click, we also want to then say vals at bucket my index path is equal to clicked. So we'll update this guy, which is going to be passed in by the collection view controller with the correct string, the updated string. So to finally connect the dots there, we'll go back to our collection view controller. And the very first thing we'll do is we'll let the cell know about his index path, which is indexPath.row. And we'll also let the cell know about vals, which would be self.vals. So we'll give him access to those two values this time around, so that whenever one of the cells gets clicked, it will adjust that global dictionary at the correct place. So that the next time that cell gets generated, the next time it gets called from in here, we'll check vals to see if it has a value in there. And if it does, we'll go ahead and set the text equal to the last known value. Does that make some sense? I'll go ahead and click on this guy. We'll scroll down some. I'll come back up. Oh, look what's happened here. This guy didn't change. What does that tell us about how things like this are passed? What does that tell us about how things like dictionaries are passed? If I come down here to my cell for row and index path, I'm passing it my vals array, or vals dictionary. But this dictionary is being passed in by value. So changes I make to him are not permanent. So I'm passing it a copy. So a way around that is to use our singleton. So I'll create a new file. A lot of times I'll call this guy just core. Like core data or something like that, so I'll just call it core. And what I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to create a static variable. We'll call this guy vals, and he's going to be equal to an int string combo. And this is a global variable now that's accessible anywhere inside of our code by saying core.vals. So then down here in my collection view controller, I'll get rid of this vals, because now I've made it global to the entire I've made it global to the entire thing. So then down here, I'm no longer talking about self.vals. In fact, I don't even need a cell to know anything about vals. Because this cell can now access vals by saying core.vals. Go ahead and build that real quick so it'll find it. So I'll come back in here. So cell.vals no longer exists, so I took that out. And we're not talking about self.vals anymore. Now we're talking about core.vals. Core.vals. So that is a global variable, and this is in something called a singleton. So that's a object that's globally available everywhere in your application. So now I don't have to worry about the fact that vals is passed around by value, because I'm actually only using the one version of vals, which lives inside of core. Okay, so now I will let every cell know what his current index path is. That way when he updates core vals, he's updating the correct position in it. But now I'm only updating one dictionary. I'm not passing what I thought was pointers to dictionaries to it. Now, the reality is that Swift has something called in-out that allows you to pass something in as a pointer rather than as a value. So we could have used that instead with the original way we wrote this to have it be changed when we make a change. But this gave us an opportunity to introduce singletons. So now I have this one global array that I use for, everything related to this collection view. So both the cells and the collection view itself have access to this one array, and they're manipulating that one array. So if I click this button here, it says click now. Scroll down a bunch. Scroll back up, and now it still says clicked. Does that make sense how that works? All right. So now, the last piece is when somebody clicks on one of those cells, you probably want them to actually go somewhere. So it should give us enough to work on for this next week. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to throw another view controller out here. And I'll throw just a label in here for right now. I like to put a little navigation bar at the top so that I can visually keep track of what these guys are. So we'll just call this guy cell click. Something like that. I'm going to go ahead and give myself a new view controller. And we'll call this guy cell click. All right, and I'm going to give myself access to that label real quick. So I'll steal this outlet code here. Call this guy my label. It'll be a UI label. Now, I also need to do one other thing here, and I'll explain why in a second. Actually, let's do it this way. My index path or something like that. we'll start that off at -1.
-1.
Okay, so I'll show you by example here real quick. So the first thing I need to do is I need to go back out to my storyboard, and I need to let that guy know that he has a storyboard ID known as CellClicked VC. But this guy is also going to be an instance of, he's not a UI view controller, he's now a CellClicked VC. But his storyboard ID is also CellClicked VC. That way I can programmatically create instances of this guy. So what we're going to do here is inside of our collection view controller, down here when we click on stuff, we're going to go ahead and create a view controller. So we'll say let VC equal self.storyboard dot instantiate view controller with identifier, and the name of that identifier is CellClicked VC, and this guy is going to be as an instance of our CellClicked VC class. Now, what might happen here is we might be tempted to do something like this: VC dot what's I call it, my label dot text equal to woot or something like that. And then we can say self.present view controller. And the one we're going to present is VC. Yes, we want it animated. And we don't need to do anything when it's completed. Alright, so now when somebody clicks on one of our cells, we'll go ahead and create a new view controller that's going to be that CellClicked VC. We're going to tell his label to go ahead and fill itself in with woot. And then we're going to present it. And remember, his label by default just says label. There's my button. Click on one of these guys. It crashes out. Why is that? It's because our label is not available to us yet. This is like prior to view did load. So that actual physical label has not been created yet. So we can't directly talk to it. So what we would do instead is we'd say VC dot, I think I actually did it as an index path. That's why I was passing over there. So my index path is going to equal index path dot row. So I can set that variable equal to it. And then over here in that new view controller, after the view has finished loading, then I can say self.mylabel.text is equal to, here we'll do woot with self.myIndexPath, proving that we got that value over there. It's not until this point in time that we actually have access to this label. So I'll go ahead and run that, and you'll see that work. And then while this is building, what do you think makes sense for you to complete for next week as far as your app goes?
I think what I should do next time is I'm going to make it so that when you click on a specific button, it's going to add it to an array. And then after you click on 13 or 14 buttons, it's going to send you to the next page. I don't know how much you completed, but it's going to send you to the next page, and it's going to have what you clicked on.
Okay, that sounds good.
And then, of course, I'll just be working on the regular Xcode stuff.
Okay. I had forgotten to set up connect my label here, so actually the previous crash was for a different reason. But trust me, what I explained was accurate. But now it'll work this time, as I explained.
as I explained.
So there's our Woot 4 if I come there.
Or if I
I didn't actually give myself a back
didn't
button,
actually give myself a back button.
but if you did have a
But,
back button,
if you did
you'd
have
be
a-
able to go back and click on a different
Go
guy.
back and click on a different guy.
So here, I'll click on another guy. Here's Woot 11, so clearly we're passing that stuff
Clearly
around.
we're passing that stuff around.
All right, so what I'll do then is
So
I'll
what
let
I'll
me
do then is
commit this code.
I'll commit this code.
Call this updates
Call this updates
from 215.
215.
And I'll go ahead and push this.
Go ahead and put this.
All right, so that should be up on the GitHub for you to take a look at, and then I'll also upload our video here so that you could reference it and
So you can reference
go
it.
back through some of the stuff a bit slower, that
Some
kind
of
of
the
stuff.
stuff a bit slower.
Sound like a plan?
Sound like a plan?
All right, so do you have any
Do you have any
questions before we
questions before we
go?
go?
Thank you. I'll see you next week.
All right, you take care.
All right, you take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.